This video is about two different main ways that you can do your normal pull-up and how to get the most out of your pull-ups, how to optimize your pull-ups. But first, let's cover three things. The first thing is that you should know the difference between an active hang and a passive hang. If you don't, a passive hang is where you just jump on the pull-up bar and you don't have any muscles activated other than your grip. It's also known as a dead hang. You're just dead hanging there. You're opening your shoulders, you're stretching your lats, and you're decompressing your spine. That's what the passive hang is great for. An active hang puts you in the position to do a pull-up, a knee raise, or many other exercises on the pull-up bar. And an active hang is where you activate your back muscles by retracting your shoulder blades and depressing your shoulder blades. Retraction is where you bring your shoulder blades together, and depression is where you bring your shoulder blades downwards, like towards your lower back. So think about bringing your shoulder blades together and down. So I'll show you how to get into an active hang really quick. We're just going to jump on the bar, and then we're going to activate our back muscles by bringing our shoulder blades together and down. So an active and passive hang, that's very important. The second thing I briefly want to cover is, of course, full range of motion. This is going all the way up as high as you can and going all the way back down, locking out your elbows. Now, you may be wondering, do you go all the way back to a passive hang and then reactivate and then do a pull-up? Well, this is up to you. The majority of the time, I say about 80 to 90% of the time, I go down into a passive hang and then I reactivate and then I do a pull-up again. I do this because I think it incorporates more joint integrity. It's strengthening my joints more, my shoulder joints, as opposed to staying active. But the other 10 or 20% of the time, I keep it active. I'll just go down and I'll stay into an active hang. Now when you're doing knee raises, for example, you're keeping an active hang the entire time you're doing knee raises. And third, let's try to keep it good form, everybody. Keep your feet together. Keep your body nice and controlled. I hate seeing feet spread far apart or knees slightly bent when you're doing a pull-up. Unless you have to. Unless you can't, unless your pull-up bar is not high enough and you gotta tuck your feet, I understand. But at least keep your legs together. But this video is not really about those three things. But this video is about two different main ways that you can do your normal pull-up. The first way is aiming for full shoulder retraction. We're aiming our chest high to the bar. The goal is to actually eventually touch our chest to the bar, and we're aiming for full shoulder retraction. And when doing this, you will see an arched upper back. So this pull-up looks like this. So as you can see, the goal is to aim for maximum retraction. We want to really try to pull our shoulder blades together as much as possible. And if you've never tried to pull up this way before, it's probably going to be a lot harder at first. But that's okay, because you can start this way doing body rows as well. Another thing that you probably noticed is that my upper back sort of arches. I'm aiming my chest to the bar. I'm aiming my chest a lot more to the bar than you probably have normally seen pull-ups, whereas you normally pull up straighter, and aiming for full retraction, you're aiming your chest higher. So that's when you want to activate, you pull your chest even higher. is when you're aiming for full shoulder retraction. Doing your pull-ups this way, aiming for maximum retraction, activates more back muscles. You're going to strengthen and build more back muscles, especially those deeper middle back muscles, than you do if you're just doing a normal pull-up where you're pulling straight up. So this is very important, and I recommend that you do your pull-ups this way the majority of the time that you're doing your normal pull-ups. 80 to 90% of the time, 80 or 90% of the time, when you're just doing your normal pull-up grip, just hands facing forward, your pronated pull-up position, aim for full shoulder retraction. Try to retract your shoulder blades as much as possible. Aim your chest to the bar and arch your upper back. It's perfectly safe, there's no load on it, this is perfectly fine for your back. The second way that you can do your normal grip pull-ups is probably how you see them the majority of the time. Instead of aiming for shoulder retraction, we're keeping a slight protraction in our shoulders, and we're pulling straighter up rather than aiming our chest to the bar. We're sort of just pulling more directly up, and it looks like this. So the main difference that you should notice between this way and the first way I showed you is the shoulder position. The first way, you can see that our shoulder blades are coming together and my upper back is arched, aiming my chest high. The second way, our shoulder blades are slightly protracted. Protraction is the opposite of retraction. It's pulling our shoulder blades away from the spine. Rather than pinching them together, our shoulder blades are coming away from one another. So as you can see, when we get to the top, the first way, our shoulder blades are retracted, and the second way, they were slightly protracted. And this activates less back muscles. Doing a pull-up this way is slightly easier. This is okay for if you're going down to your last reps. You'll notice that when you start doing pull-ups, aiming for full shoulder retraction, when you get down to your last reps and you start struggling, your shoulders will start protracting, and then you'll end up in this pull-up position. So it's a bit easier to do your pull-ups this way, and there's less back muscle activation. So it's not ideal to do it this way the majority of the time. However, doing your pull-ups with a slight shoulder protraction this way is great if you want to focus on your core strength as well, because you can add a posterior pelvic tilt. That's where you're squeezing your glutes and squeezing your abs really tight, tilting your pelvis backwards. So imagine tucking your butt in, creating a flat lower back, as opposed to an anterior pelvic tilt. Use your glutes, create a flat butt, flat lower back, tight abs, feet together. And when you're holding this position, when you're doing your pull-ups, then you're engaging your core the entire time, and you're working out your core muscles and building that core strength. You can't really do this so much when you're aiming for a full shoulder retraction, because when your back arches up like that and you're holding a posterior pelvic tilt, it's slightly awkward. I've tried it. It doesn't work as great. So shoulder retraction pull-up, we're not focused too much on posterior pelvic tilt on the lower half of our body, honestly. Besides from keeping our feet together in a good form, it's mostly about just aiming for a full shoulder retraction and getting that chest high, getting our shoulder blades together and down really close. And the second way, with the slight shoulder protraction, the PPT pull is what I like to call, because you should always have that posterior pelvic tilt engaged. Or this way is also great if you're doing a tucked knee pull-up or an L-sit pull-up to build that core. Now, shoulder protraction strength and shoulder retraction strength are both equally as important when it comes to your progressive bodyweight training. It comes to your calisthenics. So you don't want to neglect one or the other. says that when it comes to pull-ups, the main purpose is to activate your back muscles and build back strength, build pull strength. And this is better done when you're aiming for a full shoulder retraction. Shoulder protraction strength is easier built for the most part with push-ups and dip variations. So when you're doing a dip on rings, for example, or even on the bars, you can hold a shoulder protraction the entire time. Or when you're doing a push-up, if you're holding a shoulder protraction all the way down and all the way up, this is known as a hollow body push-up. And when it comes to pull-ups, I like to spend the most of my time on the pull-up bar, strengthening my back. So although we should aim for maximum shoulder retraction for the majority of the time that we were doing our pull-ups, I also wanted to mention real quick another good reason for doing your pull-ups with a slight shoulder protraction. And that's if you're training for a muscle-up. And if you're training for a muscle-up, you need to train explosive strength. And when you're doing a muscle-up, you're not really retracting your shoulder blades. You're coming up and around, and you have more of a shoulder protraction. So if you're training for a muscle-up, this is also a great way to work on your explosive pull-ups. And you're going to have a slight protraction of the shoulders. You can still keep that posterior pelvic tilt. As you can see, I'm still working on my bar muscle up. Alright, so that about covers this video. And if you need help, if that shoulder retraction pull-up is a little bit too hard at first, just get some gymnastic rings, bring them down low, and start doing body rows, aiming for a full shoulder retraction. If you're still new to pull-ups and you can't do a pull-up yet, just take everything in this video and relate it to body rows.